Hello, everybody. How are you doing? Welcome to the first day of our 3-day video course, all about how to outsmart your cravings. I'm pretty sure that you're gonna find this video training pretty valuable, and at the end, you will understand what are cravings and how to combat them. Because I'm gonna give you some cool tips about that, and you're going to understand that it's all about your brain. In order to stop your cravings, you have to rewire your brain. And I know how important it is, because oftentimes you feel like you're doing great, you're on a healthy protocol, you're eating great, but then your cravings hit, and then you don't know what to do. You react to a cravings, you eat something that you didn't plan for, and then you start beating yourself up. It's really hard for you to come back to your healthy and nourishing eating plan. So I think that it's pretty important to talk about cravings, because this is the number one thing that I see people struggle with, and they also start to self-sabotaging themselves if they don't know what to do with their cravings. But at the beginning, I would like to introduce myself to you. Perhaps you already follow me on social media, so maybe this is unnecessary, but just a reminder that I am a neuroscience graduate. That's why all I do about the nutrition, about the holistic lifestyle, it always has something to do with the brain, because this topic is very important to me, and I did study it at the university. I'm also a nutritionist. I've been following the plant-based diet since 2013, but don't worry, I'm not going to push you into plant-based eating. It's something that I've chosen for myself, and I'm proud of it. But it's not like I think that it's the only way you can achieve health. Quite the opposite. I'm trying to be above the nutritional dogma, so it is something that works for me, and I'm telling you that. But I also know that maybe you will find different eating protocol that works for you, and that's totally fine. In the past, I've also struggled with binge eating, and I think that this is pretty important to mention. And I've been also a yo-yo dieter. My body weight fluctuated quite a lot for the past, I would say, 10 years, and only right now I came to stable, only now I'm at my stable weight. And to be honest, I'm obsessed with helping women and also other people to better manage their brain. Because if you want to eat healthy, it's not like I'm going to give you an information on how to eat healthy and you're just going to do it. No, because all the information is processed first by your brain, and then your brain often self-sabotages you, because you already know what to do, but you just don't, the action doesn't follow your knowledge. So that's why we have to better manage our brain to make better decisions. And here are some pictures, of me from the past. I put them here because I just want you to understand that I know how it feels to wake up every day, hate your body, hate your life, be demotivated and be obsessed with food. Like 80 or 90% of my thoughts during the day were all about my body, and also how my face looked like, because I had horrible acne. I was obsessed with what I'm gonna eat next, whether I'm gonna have a good day of eating or bad day of eating, whether it's gonna end in a binge. So yeah, I just want you to know that I've been there. Maybe you are at this point right now. So I think I discovered a way to really do a healthy lifestyle in a sustainable and doable way. And I want to share with you, what I have found out, and I want to guide you through this process so that you don't have to suffer as I did in the past. Okay, and let's start with topics of today's video. So outsmart your cravings. So as I told you, I'm a neuroscientist, so I came up with this, brain-centric perspective on overeating and cravings, and this is what I preach. So my program is all about changing your body by rewiring your brain. So I don't really focus on changing your body. It's more about mental changes and also physical, structural changes in your body because of the neuroplasticity. So in the past, I discovered what is neuroplasticity, and I applied the principles of neuroplasticity to build really healthy and sustainable habits. And as a side effect, I was able to reshape my body to a desired shape, and this is what I want to share with you. And today's video is about cravings. So maybe let's start with this topic. So craving is a powerful desire for something, and a food craving is is an intense desire for a specific food. So now you may ask yourself, what's the difference between hunger and craving? So there are a couple of differences here. I wanted to just put the most important ones. So in my opinion, hunger comes more gradually, and you feel it mostly like from your stomach and also from like your whole body. Maybe you, for example, feel lightheaded, and any food will satisfy your hunger. So right now, if you would tell me that you are hungry and I would offer you, unseasoned tofu, and if you are really hungry, you would say like, oh yeah, okay, tofu will do, even if it's unseasoned. So the hunger is easy to satisfy. You feel physically weak, then you eat something and you probably feel better. However, with the cravings, you see, having cravings hit more suddenly. You're like totally fine, and all of a sudden you've got this thought that you need to eat something. So usually it's more like a mental thing. It's more like a psychological hunger, that you just have a thought that something could, pick you up. You would feel better after eating something. And usually the craving is for a specific food. So again, if you're telling me that you're hungry, and I'm telling you that I have freshly cut, cucumbers and tomatoes, and if you're saying like, oh no, I was thinking that I would prefer like chocolate or Doritos, so this is probably a craving. And cravings are often harder to satisfy with, because with the hunger, any food will do. Whatever has calories will help you to feel better. However, with the cravings, sometimes you feel like bottomless pit, right? You eat something, then you want something else. Now you had something sweet, so you want something crunchy, and it's a little bit harder to satisfy. So to summarize, in my opinion, hunger is more like a metabolic drive for food, and it's generated by real nutrient needs. However, cravings is more like a hedonic drive. So let's say that you already have a lot of energy inside your body. You have enough energy to go through a day, but you have this hedonic drive because you want to feel better, and it's generated by other needs, maybe some psychological needs. And it's not a need for like real nutrients. So here we go to the main part of today's video, that we have I divide cravings into three reasons. I would say that cravings usually have these three main reasons. So first reason is that your brain is programmed to seek high calorie foods because it supports our survival. The second reason is that your brain receives mixed signals from your body because you have some kind of like hormonal imbalance. And this is the topic we're going to talk about tomorrow. And the third reason is that you have built a habit of soothing yourself with food when you feel a certain way. So in other ways, we could call it emotional eating. So I would say that those are the three main reasons for cravings. And even if you can find, other smaller reasons for cravings, usually they fit into one of those categories. So today we're going to talk about, your brain being programmed in that way. Tomorrow we're going to talk about hormones, and the day after we're going to talk about habit and emotions. Okay, so topic of today's video is that your brain is programmed to seek high calorie foods because it supports our survival. So we have this instinctive drive for food like every other creature on the planet Earth. And the funny thing is that our eating behavior is often guided by those systems, by those unconscious systems, because those systems were designed and they evolved in a way to support our survival. So if you think about our ancestors, so they were able to survive because our brain is programmed in a way that we are looking for food all the time. So the calorie shortage, if we didn't have enough food, that was a real threat for our ancestors. That's why our brain evolved that way, so that we are always looking for ways to to meet our needs. So I would say we can divide our brain. Of course, not really, not right and left. This is just a graphic, just a visual. So I would say that we could say that we have primitive brain and we have our rational brain. So primitive brain is evolutionarily older part of our brain, and it is based on, and it's more like involuntary. It's more based on intuition. It's more effortless. It's those are the where the reflexes, where our habits, automatic responses are stored. However, we have also a rational brain, and our irrational brain is more deliberate, is more is the rational brain is, for example, prefrontal cortex. So this is the part of the brain when we make decisions, when we plan. This is the part of the brain that is responsible for us being concentrated on our work, on constructing some thoughts. This is the analytical part of the brain, and it takes a lot of effort. So, for example, primitive brain to act, to do something, it doesn't take much effort. It's effortless. However, rational brain, because it is slower, so it's more deliberate. So as I told you, our eating behavior comes mainly from the primitive brain, not rational brain. We may think that we are making, the conscious decisions about our food choices, but actually this is our primitive brain, because it was designed that way. Because all animals have to support their survival by eating enough, because we need energy to keep us going. And our brain has something that is called reward system. So this reward system is very important for our survival. So whenever we're doing something that supports our survival, the reward system is activated so that it keeps us going. So the very important neurotransmitter in the reward center is dopamine. So dopamine is responsible for us being, motivated to do something. At the beginning, it gives us a reward. Like, if you do something good, your brain releases some dopamine in a reward system, and you feel better. You feel, better, and the behavior is reinforced, because your brain thinks like, oh, this is important for our survival, and we need to make sure that you're gonna do it in the future. Yes. And I told you about the reinforcement, that this is very, very important. But the problem right now we are facing in our obesogenic environment is that we started to manufacturing food that doesn't really food that you can't find in nature. So we started to design food in a way that it hits our bliss point. So it hits our reward system in a specific way that our brain gets hooked up on that specific food. And usually our brain will prefer, higher calorie density, because the more higher calorie density food you eat, the more energy you are able to have on your body, and then you can store it in your fatty tissue, which in the future may help you, because in case of some kind of threat, in case of famine, you will be able to access that stored energy that is in your fatty tissue. That's why for your body it's important to seek high calorie dense foods, because you work for them less, but you obtain more. So and also the higher calorie density foods usually hit your reward system a little bit more, which means that also they produce the higher reinforcement. So you feel like you want to work for them more, right? If here I would put a salad, you're like, salad, come on. But if I put something higher in calories, then your brain just wants it, because it's programmed in a way to seek high calorie density foods, because your brain thinks that if some is good, then more must be better. So let's get more foods that are higher in calories, because that's good for us. But the problem is that your brain is protecting itself by building tolerance. So let's say if you get if you overuse something, some kind of substance, it can be also with food. If you use it too much, if it hits your reward system a little bit too much, your body will protect itself. So if you get, dopamine spikes in your brain all the time, your brain is like, oh my god, that's too much, that's too much noise, let's close the windows, so to say. So they close them, let's say that the receptors, or just receptors are less sensitive to the dopamine. So if you are eating a lot of, highly processed foods that are higher in calorie density, and they are highly reinforcing, and they hit your reward system in a very specific way, then at some point you might build a tolerance. So you may require more and more this kind of food. That's why you are hooked on it. So let's say that you're eating a chocolate, and the first bite you take, it's like, oh, that's pretty delicious, and you are motivated to eat more, eat more. But there's something like the law of diminishing returns, that the first bite was yum, and then later you're like, it doesn't really taste that good anymore, but sometimes you keep going. So we can see this sort of like a tolerance and sensory specific satiety as well. This is something similar, that the longer you eat, the less you desire food. And yeah, the problem is that we are living in an obesogenic environment. So if we're going to come back to our ancestors, to the example of our ancestors, they had to really work hard for food. So for them, finding high calorie food was a win. But right now, we don't have to really work hard for food anymore. So our brain is still, wired in a way to look for higher density, higher calorie foods, but it's not like we have to work hard for them. We can just call for food, and somebody, gonna bring us food. We can go in our car to the place that sells high calorie foods. So it's very easy for us to obtain high calorie foods, or just processed foods, or just foods, that have somehow like addictive properties. So that's the problem, because all of those like advertisements, they hit our primitive brain, because our primitive brain, again, it was designed to want food because it supports our survival. So we've got this more thinking brain, neocortex, but I would say that in the front we've got like prefrontal cortex. So this is more our thinking brain, and the primitive brain would be, well, I call primitive brain, those older evolutionary parts of your brain. So that would be a limbic system and reptilian brain. So your desire comes from your desire for food, for especially hedonic food, hedonic desire for food. So cravings come from your primitive brain, of course, because your brain was desired that way. And your primitive brain cannot really like easily communicate your desire, so it starts to to poke the more thinking part of the brain, and the thinking part of the brain will produce thoughts. So all of your desires come from thoughts. It's not like you've got some kind of feeling that you want something. You might have a feeling in your body that you have a craving, but then you have a thought. So you have a thought that, oh, that would look great. Oh, I would have just a bite. Oh, one bite won't hurt me, won't, impact my progress. So every desire you have comes from your primitive brain. And as I told you before, that calorie restriction, or calorie, and not be having access to food is a threat, would be a threat for our ancestors. So our brain is also programmed in a way to really be sensitive to scarcity, because scarcity in the past could mean that we would die faster. If we have a shortage of calories, shortage of energy, shortage of food, the probability of us dying from hunger is way higher. So our brain is also very sensitive to scarcity. But think about what is diet. Every diet feeds into our scarcity mindset. So whenever you are telling yourself that, oh, you can't have brain, you can't have grains, you can't have corn because you're on a diet, you can have low fat things, or you can have oils, your brain freaks out. It's like, I can't have it. But what if it die? if we die? So every restriction, every diet restriction you make in your mind, because those are usually like just a just psychological restrictions, it's interpreted by your brain as something really scary. That's why you often see yourself, having the last cake, before going on a diet. You have some sort of a behavior called last supper behavior. So you think that, oh, this is my last, I don't know, cheat meal, because after that I'm going on a diet. So you're creating this scarcity mindset in your brain. That's why you usually overeat, because you're telling yourself that, oh, from tomorrow I'm not going to eat it. This is the last time I'm eating it. And for your brain, your brain interprets that as winter is coming. We have to eat as much as possible. We have to, store as much energy as is possible, because later it won't be available. Because again, your brain hasn't evolved yet. It doesn't understand that you have a shop that is open 24 hours and that we won't starve. Your brain sees things in a different way, especially your primitive brain, because your rational brain understands that. But again, your eating behavior is actually mostly directed by your primitive brain. So your primitive brain, whenever you go on a diet, your primitive brain freaks out. It's like, we're going to die. We won't have food. So that's a problem. So what is the solution? I'm going to quickly, go through a solution. So first of all, we have to learn how to live in an obesogenic environment, because we are tempted very often. So if you every day you see, adverts for highly processed foods, or you go next to the fast food restaurants, it all hits your primitive brain. Your primitive brain is like, look, food, look, food. Oh, we have to eat it. We have to eat it. Your brain, because those adverts and all of that and that surrounds us, it's designed for us to overeat on it. So we have to learn how to live in obesogenic environment and live maybe a little bit like our ancestors. So we have to work for food. It's not like we should sit all day in front of the computer and then just eat. We should try to change our lifestyle a little bit, so that it better supports our health and our food decisions. We also have to resensitize our reward system, because our reward system at the moment is pretty much overwhelmed, because everything is like a super normal stimuli, something that our brain hasn't yet evolved to accommodate. For example, in the past we had regular food. Right now we have highly processed foods. In the past we had sex. Right now we have porn. In the past we had work and accomplishment. Right now we have video games. So our reward system is really hijacked by activities that give us too much reward, and our brain gets just desensitized. So then when you are doing the normal things that in the past would give you like this dopamine burst, right now they don't give you that dopamine burst. So for example, like a normal food. So right now you are drawn to eating highly processed foods. But if you will resensitize your reward system, again, like natural unprocessed foods would taste better for you and would give you satisfaction. So that's why rewiring your reward system is pretty important. And also you have to learn how to use your prefrontal cortex, your rational brain, because again, I told you we have primitive brain, rational brain. Most of our food choices are coming from primitive brain, but we have to learn how to use our prefrontal cortex, our rational brain, but also we don't want to rely on like willpower. So this is pretty like tricky, but because our prefrontal cortex has an ability to plan, to make decisions, we have to learn how to make decisions ahead of time, how to delay gratification, how to reframe our mindset a little bit so that we do not buy into this scarcity mindset. We can also boost our motivation by using episodic future thinking. So those are all of the things that we talk inside my program, which I teach you. Okay, so now today, after today's video, you know that your brain was programmed that way. So the fact that you have cravings is because your brain was programmed that way. and that's totally fine. We can, work around it. We can change your environment. You can change your reward system so that you are not as reactive to the triggers outside of you that would trigger cravings. So tomorrow we're gonna meet to talk about, hormones, how hormones can impact your cravings. So I hope that you find today's video uh, valuable. And if you have any questions, just let me know on any social media platform, and I'm really willing to start a conversation. And hopefully I see you tomorrow. Bye.